I said October was spooky, but December and November and December is where it counted.
Welcome into Teal, the show. October was definitely spooky for the Jaguars. They lost every game that month, but since then, the team has been much improved, and now they're on a 2-game winning streak with 3 games left in the season, and they have control of their playoff destinies. Welcome into Teal, the show. I'm Jamal St. Cyr. We'll get you ready for what is a short week for the Jaguars. We've got 1010XL's Frank Frangie here as well. Frank, the Jaguars have to get ready for a Thursday night showdown this week, so they can't really dwell on the big win for very long.
And that's going to take some doing too, Jamal, because it was an emotional win. It's a young team that got a big emotional win, and they're excited about that. But you're right. You got to put that behind you very, very quickly. It was one of the most emotional wins and one of the most dramatic wins I've ever seen in that stadium. And I've been watching that team for 27 years. So a big emotional win, but you're right. You got to put it behind you because the Jets are pretty good.
Yeah, Jets are a good football team, and it's technically Thursday. I know it's Monday night, but if you look at the Jaguars' normal schedule of playing a game on Sunday, it's already Thursday, so that game is way in the past.
No, that's exactly right. So can they get themselves ready and forget about that game and move on from it? Now, if you got to have a short week, it's better to be forgetting a win than a loss, but they've got to be ready. And the Jets play good defense. The weather could be a factor. They got to be ready to play.
All right, before we talk more about that Thursday night game, Frank, we have to talk a little bit about the big win on Sunday. What an ending to that. That was incredible. The fact that Rayshawn Jenkins able to come up with a game-winning interception in overtime takes it all the way back. Frank, Rayshawn said that was the first pick six, not of his NFL career, but of his life.
Pee-wee in high school, I was more of an offensive guy, so I never really got to, really play DB. Yeah, I didn't really get the chance. College, I had 9 interceptions, but they were all, I was never able to get in the end zone with none of them, man. And what's crazy is earlier this week, I was just sitting, just thinking, on my couch one day, I was like, man, I've never had a pick six in the NFL. Or a walk-off like that. And what's crazy is both of them happened today, so that was cool.
Rayshawn should be excited about that play. What a big play. And frankly, what a game he had. 18 total tackles. 9 of those were solos. And remember, Rayshawn made the play behind the line on 2nd and 3 that made it 3rd and 4 and forced the Cowboys to have to pass the ball. And then he picked it off for the pick six. He's been a great find for the Jaguars. A great leader, a good guy, and a tough-nosed defensive player. One of the best defensive performances for one game I've ever seen from a Jaguar player. That's how good it was.
Yeah, he's been huge for this Jaguars defense this year, and he's going to have to play a big role for them in the final 3 games down the stretch. Now, the Jaguars have started to kind of turn things around, but in their 3 last wins, they've all been come-from-behind victories. Down 17 points to the Ravens, down 17 points to the Cowboys. While it's great that they're able to finish these football games, Frank, you still would like to see them get off to maybe a little bit quicker start, right?
Yeah, there's no question. And look, other games they started well and faded. Some games they started poorly and bounced back. All part of a young team. Jamal, we talk about it all the time. You got to figure out who you are. Now, look, sometimes you're going to have stinkers. The Detroit game was just a one-off. It's obvious that's not who they are because every other game's been close. But, yeah, you've got to figure out who you are. But they need to start fast against the Jets. That could be a wet game, a low-scoring game, so a quick start is very important there. But, yeah, you want to get off to some better starts. Doug Peterson knows that.
Yeah, I asked Doug Peterson about it today, and he basically, to borrow a phrase from the Fast and Furious, said it doesn't matter if you win by an inch or a mile, a win's a win.
As long as we win the game. I mean, yeah, we want to start fast, but we also say finish faster. And in these games, it might be a slow start, but we finish fast, you know. And again, the bottom line is winning the game, right? I mean, every team out there wants to win the game, but it doesn't matter. It could be, you know, for 59 minutes, it could be ugly, and then 1 minute, it looks great, and you win the game. So, you know, bottom line is win the game, but at the same time, we know we gotta either get off the field on defense or stay on the field, you know, offensively, and either not turn it over or score.
We'll have to see if on the short week the Jaguars can get off to a little bit of a quicker start this week. They're going to go against a pretty good Jets team. This Jets team has been playing some good football, even if they do have some question marks at quarterback right now.
Yeah, there's no question. What they are, though, is they're good defensively. That's what they are. They're tough. They're physical. Robert Saleh's a good coach. He was here as a good position coach. He went on to be a good coordinator. He's a very good head coach. He's tough. He's a tough guy. He coaches very similar to the way that Mike Vrabel coaches. His teams are tough. They'll play tough, and they are very good defensively. Now, they've had some struggles offensively, but you got to take care of the ball against this team. They are ball hawks, and it's a very good defensive team for the Jets, and the Jags know that.
Yeah, this would be a real challenge for the Jaguars, especially on a short week, as they are going to be dealing with some injuries, but this team knows what's at stake and what they have to play for, so that means they should be prepared and ready to go on Thursday.
It's just going to be a matter of us preparing the way we need to throughout the week, understanding the elements maybe. Their home turf, I know they're going to be hungry for a win. It's this part of the season where, like, this is where it's fun. You know, not saying it's not fun in the beginning, but, you know, it's going to come down to who wants it more, who's going to execute, and we get to see what we're made of down the stretch. And I'm very confident in the men that I'm going to battle with.
Don't go anywhere. There's still more Teal the Show coming your way. After the break, Frank Frangie and myself will talk about the Jets game on Thursday night. Tell you if we think the Jaguars can pull off another victory. That's coming up on Teal the Show. Welcome back into Teal the Show, Frank. This should be a very interesting game. James Robinson traded to the New York Jets earlier this year. At first, we kind of marked the calendar and said maybe this could be the James Robinson revenge game, but now it doesn't look as, I guess, daunting as it once did, since James Robinson hasn't exactly been getting very much playing time up there in New York.
James is a tough-nosed guy. He was a great Jaguar. He really was. But he's got some health issues. He's got knee injuries. He's got to take care of those knees. I think everybody knew that. I think the Jets knew that when they acquired him from Jacksonville. He's a guy that, when healthy, is a wonderful player to watch, a wonderful teammate. But he has had some knee injuries, Jamal. So he's not a guy that's going to be able to play a lot here or there. I like James. I wish him the best. But even when he went to New York, I never expected him to be a big factor up there. And I just didn't. And I hope he's able to play some, and I hope he's able to be a factor. I really am.
All right, elsewhere on that Jets offense, we talked a little bit about the quarterback situation. When we looked at this game before the season started, we said, oh, it's Trevor Lawrence versus Zach Wilson. And then Zach Wilson loses the starting job, insert Mike White, but now Mike White's hurt. He missed last week's game. We're kind of waiting to find out if he'll be ready for Thursday night. But if he can't go, then it is Trevor Lawrence versus Zach Wilson, number 1 and 2 in that draft class. I know us in the media probably make a whole lot more about this than the guys in the locker room do, but it's definitely a talking point because Trevor Lawrence looks to be ascending while Zach Wilson may be heading in the other direction right now.
Yeah, I think so. Look, Zach, it's way too early to decide. This isn't a referendum on how good Zach Wilson will be. It's way too early to find out how good he'll be for the Jets. But he got beat out by Mike White. The Jets would rather play Mike White. Robert Saleh's been clear about that, but he's been hurt. I don't think he's going to be cleared. Saleh said today he's not sure, so we'll see. But I think the Jets would rather play Mike White. At least today, he's the better quarterback. That doesn't mean they've given up on Zach Wilson, but for today, he is. But I don't think he's going to play. I think it's going to be Zach Wilson. So you're going to have that 1 versus 2 comparison. The big struggle Wilson's had is with completion percentage. He's been confused by defenses. He's barely over 50%. Jamal, you know as I do, in today's NFL, a good quarterback's got to be 65 to 70%. He threw for 300 yards last week, but his percentage was low, only 18 out of 35. I think the Jaguars can bother him and get to him with their pass rush and mixing some coverages. I really do.
Yeah, and this Jaguars defense, all of a sudden, they're turnover happy again. You know, we started the season, we were talking about all the turnovers are coming in bunches, and they kept saying, you know, turnovers come in bunches, but then it dried up for a while there, Frank. And then now it looks like the turnovers are back, which is good, especially when you're maybe going up against a quarterback that's been struggling. So some of these guys on the defense are going to be licking their chops, hoping that they can get a couple interceptions or get their hands on a football on Thursday night.
Well, they're going to need to get some takeaways. You're going to have takeaways because the Jaguars still aren't a great defense. That's the weakest side of the ball. Everybody knows it. So they're not going to stuff teams. They're not getting a lot of 3 and outs. So if you're not getting 3 and outs and the other guy's going to move it a little bit, you better get the ball away from them. That's how they've won some games. Obviously, they just won a game with a takeaway. They're going to have to get some takeaways. I think they're going to. I think they've settled into what their secondary is going to be. I think it's going to be Darius Williams and Campbell outside. It's going to be Trey Herndon in the slot. They're going to play a lot of zone. They're going to walk Rayshawn up into that box a lot. They figured out who they are, and I think that's who they are now, Jamal.
All right, let's talk about that Jets defense and the Jaguars offense a little bit. Let's start with that left tackle situation. The win last week was phenomenal against the Cowboys. But the bad news of that win is Cam Robinson likely done for the year with a meniscus injury. Insert Walker Little, who actually had to finish the game on Sunday against the Cowboys. We haven't seen much of Walker Little throughout his time here in Jacksonville, but he did fill in a little bit at left tackle previously last year.
I thought he played terrific the other day. Look, he hasn't played much this year. He hadn't played much before. The reality is he didn't play his last year in college at Stanford. So this is a guy that's played very little football, and all of a sudden he's got to go play, and he's facing Micah Parsons, who might be the best pass rusher in the league. What a challenge. Remember, they put Parsons right over that right end the minute he went into the game. Now, look, they helped him some. They kept a tight end some. They chipped a little bit. But there were times they didn't help him, times they went empty in the backfield, and he had to block Parsons one-on-one. You know what, Jamal? He did a pretty good job. I think Walker Little is going to be a good player. People have always thought that. The first time he had to do it, he did it against one of the best players in the NFL for a short period of time, and I thought he did pretty well. I'm pretty confident that Walker Little is going to be okay at that left tackle spot.
Yeah, and Trevor Lawrence needs him to be okay so that way he can have enough time to operate. We've seen what Trevor Lawrence has been able to do over this last, maybe, I guess, 6-game stretch at this point. He's looked phenomenal, but the offensive line does have to help him a little bit. Let's talk about some of those guys catching the passes. Frank, Zay Jones, 3 touchdowns on Sunday. I mean, how does he top that performance this week on a short week?
I think one of the things I'm most pleased with this team is these receivers. Think about this for a second. Christian Kirk is going to go over 1,000 yards probably this week. Zay Jones is going to be in the 800s. Evan Ingram's already got 60-plus catches in the 600s. Those 3 new guys have been such a great surprise and such a pleasant addition to this team. I love the way they've played. Zay Jones is better than I thought he was. I knew Christian Kirk was a special player. I knew if Evan Ingram could stay healthy, Jamal, he'd be a matchup nightmare for linebackers. I didn't realize Zay Jones was this good of a player. You know, he had potential. He's having a breakout season. That's maybe one of the stories of the season. If you get beyond what Trevor Lawrence is doing, one of the stories of the season is Zay Jones and how good he's been. And he's a nice guy. He's friendly. Teammates like him. I love what Zay Jones is doing.
Oh, gosh, Zay Jones, one of my favorite guys to talk to in that Jaguars locker room. He should have an interesting matchup this week since he's going to probably see a large share of rookie cornerback Sauce Gardner. Sauce has been the story of a breakout player for the Jets. I know he's a high-round draft pick, but I don't think anybody expected him to walk in the door and be locked down from day one. But that's what he's been doing for the Jets so far, Frank.
He's a really good player. He's one of the best players in the draft. You thought he might be. He's even better than people thought. And he's benefited from a pretty good pass rush. When Quinnen Williams is healthy and plays, boy, they've got a good front, too. So, and remember, Quincy Williams, the former Jaguars there as well, Quinnen's brother, they're good defensively. And you're right, Sauce Gardner's been a nice player for them. Look, the Jets have a nice nucleus. Just like we talk about the nice nucleus here, Jamal, the Jets have a nice nucleus. The biggest difference is Jacksonville has figured out its quarterback situation, which is the most important situation to figure out, and the Jets aren't there yet. But that young nucleus, particularly defensively for the Jets, is pretty good.
All right, Frank, I know it's Monday night, but since the Jaguars play on Thursday night this week, we got to pick the game. Do you think the Jaguars can go up to New York on a short week coming off a big win and walk out with a W?
I think by now you know where I'm headed here, Jamal, okay? I mean, I'm on a roll. I'm steady. I'm consistent. I'm motivating the Jags by picking the other team all these times. This one, I don't know where to go. If I was really picking it, I'd flip a coin. It's a 1-point line. I'm not messing it up. I'm picking the Jets, and when I pick the Jets, then the Jaguars will win. They're trying to win a division here, so they need my help. But I think it's going to be a close. I'll pick the Jets because I've been doing that. It's going to be a close game. This will be a fourth-quarter game. 2 really evenly matched young teams with the whole nation watching, a very close game down the stretch.
Hey, nothing wrong with being a little superstitious. We can't mess up the mojo at this point, Frank, so I'll stick with you and go Jets here just to make sure that that they can prove both of us wrong and keep those playoff hopes alive. One more thing before we wrap up the show. Frank, it's late December. The Jaguars have 3 games left at this point, and they control their own destiny. Did you see this coming before the season started? Because I can't say I did.
No, I didn't. I really didn't. In fact, Jamal, I thought they'd get to 6 or 7 wins, which is kind of where they may be headed, 7 or 8 wins. I didn't see this kind of a run. Number one, I didn't think the division would struggle like this. I thought the Colts would be way better. They're not very good at all. And the Titans, in fairness to them, have lost a lot of guys to injury, but they're leaking oil. Think about this. If the Jaguars win the rest of their games, they win the Super Bowl. Realize that? If they win the rest of their games, if they win the rest of their games in regular season, they win the division, because that'll mean they had tiebreaker over the Titans. And then you keep on playing. Did you think you'd say in the middle of December the Jaguars get to keep playing until they lose a game? Hard to believe, but that's what I'm telling you.
No, I did not think that was coming, but you know what? That's the reality. And with 1 home game left in the year against the Titans right now on the regular season schedule, I can honestly say if this shapes up to what we think it is, I cannot wait to feel that bank rocking on that Sunday. We got a few days or a few weeks before then, and the Jaguars have some business they have to take care of. Frank, thanks for being here. Thank you at home for tuning in to Teal the Show. We'll see you on Friday night. Good night. Go Jags.